The morning sun of Valdris Prime cast long shadows across the crystal towers as the council members gathered for their final celebration. In just 60 hours, their fleets would begin the complete destruction of humanity. Today was a day for speeches, ceremonies, and the sweet taste of victory. Supreme Leader Vexithara stood on the highest balcony of the main tower, looking out over the assembled crowds below. Millions of aliens had come to witness this historic moment. Holographic displays throughout the city showed the positions of the invasion fleets, over 50,000 warships moving toward human space like an unstoppable tide. "Citizens of the galaxy," Vexithara announced, her voice carrying across the planet through speakers and broadcasts. "Today marks the end of the human threat. No longer will these primitive mammals spread their chaos across our sacred stars. The galaxy will finally be pure again." The crowds cheered wildly, their voices creating a deafening roar that echoed off the crystal buildings. Fireworks exploded in the sky, painting the pale blue atmosphere with brilliant colors. It was the greatest celebration in galactic history. High above the planet hidden in the asteroid field, Captain Taehyun Kim stood on the bridge of the Indomitable. His crew worked quietly around him, making final preparations. The time for hiding was almost over. "Captain," called Tactical Officer Minho Park, "all systems are ready. We can decloak on your command." Taehyun nodded, but he didn't give the order yet. He wanted to hear more of what the aliens were saying. He wanted to understand exactly how much they hated his people. On the planet below, different alien leaders were taking turns speaking to the crowd. Each speech was more hateful than the last, describing humans as a disease that needed to be cut out of the galaxy. They talked about human children as if they were insects to be crushed. They laughed about the homes and families that would soon be destroyed. "The humans think they're explorers," laughed one speaker, a creature covered in thick scales. "But they're really just thieves, taking planets that belong to older, better races. Well, today we take everything back." Communications Officer Hyunwoo Choi was recording every word. These speeches would be broadcast across human space so everyone could understand what they were really fighting against. This wasn't a war over territory or resources. This was a war for survival. "Captain," said Chief Science Officer Suman Kang, "long-range sensors show that 3 more alien battle groups have joined the invasion force. We're now looking at over 55,000 enemy ships." The numbers were staggering, but Taehyun's expression didn't change. He had known from the beginning that this would be the most dangerous mission in human history. The odds had always been impossible. "Any word from our sister ships?" he asked. Commander Ji Hye-song checked her communications panel. "All vessels report ready, Captain. They're waiting for our signal." Across the galaxy, 16 other human battleships hung invisibly, near alien homeworlds. Each ship was identical to the Indomitable, 4 kilometers of advanced human technology, armed with weapons that could crack planets and defended by shields that could stop anything the aliens could throw at them. But the aliens didn't know any of this. They were too busy celebrating their coming victory to notice the death that floated silently above their worlds. On Valdris Prime, the celebration reached its peak as Vexithara activated a massive holographic display. It showed the entire galaxy, with human colonies marked in blue and alien fleets marked in red. As the crowd watched, the red markers began moving toward the blue ones like predators stalking their prey. "In 60 hours, Vexithara announced, the red will wash away the blue forever. The human stain will be cleansed from our galaxy, and peace will reign supreme." The crowd erupted in cheers so loud they could be heard from orbit. Alien children waved flags and sang songs about the coming victory. Military commanders saluted each other, proud to be part of such a glorious campaign. "Captain," Taehyun had heard enough. He turned to Commander Song and nodded once. Ji-hee pressed the red button on her activation device. Throughout the Indomitable, systems that had been dormant for months suddenly came to life. The ship's cloaking field flickered and died, revealing 4 kilometers of sleek, deadly human engineering. The adaptive armor began to shift and flow like liquid metal, preparing for battle. Weapon ports opened along the hull like hungry mouths, and the ship's massive fusion antimatter reactor reached full power for the first time since launch. On Valdris Prime, every sensor on the planet began screaming warnings. The crowd stopped, cheering, and looked up at the sky in confusion. Emergency alarms wailed from the crystal towers as defense systems tried to lock onto the massive object that had suddenly appeared above them. The Indomitable hung in the sky like a dark angel, its hull blocking out the sun and casting the planet into shadow. The ship was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Human vessels were supposed to be small, crude, and weak. This thing was a monster, a weapon of war that defied everything they thought they knew about human technology. "What is that?" whispered someone in the crowd. Vexthara stared up at the ship, her forearms trembling. "Impossible," she breathed. "Humans don't have ships like that." On the Indomitable's bridge, Communications Officer Do-Hyun Lim opened channels to every receiver on the planet and every fleet in the galaxy. Captain Taehyun stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. "This is Captain Taehyun Kim of the Earth battleship Indomitable," he said. "We've been listening." Those 4 words sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The humans had been spying on the council meetings. They knew about the invasion plans. They had heard every hateful speech, every genocidal threat, every laugh at the expense of human children who were about to die. "For 3 years, Taehyun continued, we've watched you debate our fate. We've listened to you plan our extinction. We've observed your fleets massing to destroy our homes and families." On the planet below, panic began to spread through the crowds. This wasn't how the day was supposed to go. The humans were supposed to be helpless, unaware of what was coming until it was too late. How could they have known? How could they have built something like this? Tactical Officer Min Sako reported from his station. "Captain, 17 different species are trying to get weapon locks on us. Their targeting systems can't penetrate our defensive fields. Hundreds of alien interceptor fighters launched from bases across the planet, swarming around the Indomitable like angry insects. They fired everything they had, plasma cannons, particle beams, nuclear missiles, but their weapons simply vanished into the ship's defensive barriers. The energy was absorbed and redirected, making the human ship glow with captured power. "You call us primitive." Captain Taehyun's voice continued to echo across the galaxy. "You think we're confined to a single star system, dependent on your mercy? You believe we're weak because we seek peace first and war only as a last resort." His voice grew harder, colder. "You're about to learn how wrong you are." Navigation. Officer Yunahan watched her displays as more alien fighters crashed uselessly against the ship's shields. Some pilots were so desperate to stop the human broadcast that they flew directly into the Indomitable's hull, sacrificing their lives in suicide attacks that accomplished nothing. "The aliens are getting desperate," she reported. "They're throwing everything they have at us." In the medical bay, Chief Medical Officer Haeun Kim felt the ship shake slightly as hundreds of alien weapons struck their defenses, but the shaking was barely noticeable, like raindrops hitting a mountain. "How are our shields holding?" she asked one of her assistants. "Shield strength at 98%, came the reply. "The alien attacks aren't even scratching us." Back, on the bridge, Captain Taehyun prepared to deliver his final message. Around the galaxy, billions of aliens were watching and listening, their confidence cracking like ice in the spring. The humans weren't supposed to have technology like this. They weren't supposed to be able to fight back. "What you see before you," Taehyun said, his words carrying to every corner of known space, "isn't our greatest achievement. It's merely our opening statement." Those words hit the alien leaders like physical blows. If this incredible warship was just an opening statement, what else did the humans have? What other secrets had they been hiding while the galaxy planned their destruction? Supreme Leader Vexithara stared up at the Indomitable in horror. The ship's weapons were still powered down, its shields barely active. It wasn't even trying to fight back against the hundreds of fighters attacking it. It was simply waiting. "What do you want?" she screamed at the sky. Captain Taehyun's answer was simple and terrifying. "We want to live. The question is, are you going to let us?" The crystal towers of Valdris Prime stretched into the pale blue sky like giant fingers reaching for the stars. Inside the largest tower, creatures from across the galaxy gathered around a massive circular table. Each alien species looked different. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like walking rocks. But they all had one thing in common today. They were all angry at humans. Captain Tae-hyun Kim floated in the darkness of space, watching the planet through his ship's powerful cameras. His battleship, the Indomitable, hung invisible in the asteroid field like a sleeping giant. For 3 months they had been hiding here, listening to every word the aliens spoke. "Captain, we're getting another transmission from the Council," said Minho Park, the ship's tactical officer. His fingers danced across his control panel, bringing up the alien voices on the main speakers. Tae-hyun nodded and walked to the center of the bridge. Around him, 2,000 crew members worked quietly at their stations. They had been patient for so long. Soon, that patience would pay off. On the planet below, the aliens were talking about humans like they were discussing insects. Supreme. Leader Vexathara, a tall creature with purple skin and 4 arms, stood at the head of the table. Her voice was cold and harsh. "The humans have become a problem," she said. "They spread to new worlds too quickly. They ask too many questions. They refuse to follow our rules." Another alien, this one covered in green scales, hissed his agreement. "The Thex Empire lost 3 mining stations because humans claimed the systems first. They said the planets were empty, but we had mining rights for centuries. The humans are primitive," added a third creature that looked like a giant insect. "Their ships are slow. Their weapons are weak. They should not be allowed to leave their home system." In the Indomitable's communication room, Hyunwoo Choi listened to every word. He had been recording these meetings for months. Each conversation made him angrier than the last. The aliens talked about his people like they were animals to be caged. "Are they really going to vote on this?" asked Yoonji Lee, the chief engineer. She had been working on the ship's systems for 18 hours straight, making sure everything was ready. "They already know what they want to do," Tae-hyun said quietly. "This meeting is just for show." Down on the planet, Ambassador Woo-jin Nam sat at the human seat at the table. He was the only human in the room, and he looked very small compared to the aliens around him. Woo-jin had been trying to make peace for years. He believed the aliens wanted to be friends with humanity. He was about to learn how wrong he was. "The human expansion must stop," Vexathara announced. "We will put this to a vote. All in favor of Human Containment Protocol 7? 18 hands, claws, and tentacles rose into the air. Only one alien, a peaceful creature from the Zenthara race, kept their hand down. Woo-jin stood up quickly. "What does Protocol 7 mean exactly?" he asked, though he was starting to fear the answer. Vexathara smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "It means humans will no longer be allowed to travel beyond your solar system. Any human ships found outside, your space will be destroyed. Any human colonies outside Earth's system will be removed." The word "removed" hung in the air like poison. Woo-jin felt his blood turn cold. "You can't do this. We have families on those colonies. Children. Innocent people. Should have thought of that before you spread like a disease," hissed the green-scaled alien. Back on the Indomitable, the crew watched their ambassador's face change from confusion to horror. Commander Ji Hye-song stepped up beside Tae-hyun. In her hand was a small device with a red button. "Captain," she said softly, "Earth Command has sent the activation codes. Operation Revelation is authorized." Tae-hyun looked at the device for a long moment. Once Ji-hye pressed that button, there would be no going back. The aliens thought humans were weak and helpless. They were about to learn the truth. "Not yet," Tae-hyun said. "Let's see what else they have planned for us." On the planet, 2 large aliens in armor walked up behind Woo-jin. "Ambassador Nam," one of them said, "you will come with us for your own safety." "Safety from what?" Woo-jin asked. "From what happens next," Vexathara replied. As the aliens led Woo-jin away, he realized he was not going to his rooms. They were taking him to the prison levels. The human ambassador was now a prisoner, and Earth would never know what happened. To him. In the ship's science lab, Sumin Kang was studying readings from deep space. Her face was pale as she looked at the data. "Captain, you need to see this." Taehyun left the bridge and walked to the science section. On Sumin's screen were dozens of red dots, all moving toward human space. "Fleet movements?" he asked. 7 different alien races, Sumin replied. "Over 50,000 ships total. They're not just talking about stopping human expansion, Captain. They're planning to wipe us out completely." The red dots on the screen moved closer to human colonies with each passing hour. Men, women, and children who had never hurt anyone were about to become targets of an alien war machine. Back on the bridge, engineering officer Jaewon Lee was running final checks on the ship's power systems. The Indomitable was not like other human ships. While the rest of humanity built vessels for exploration and trade, this ship was built for war. But it was also built to stay hidden until the right moment. "All systems are green, Captain," Jaewon reported. "The fusion antimatter core is stable. We can go to full power whenever you're ready." First Officer Seo-young Kim gathered the senior staff in the briefing room. On the table was a hologram of the galaxy, with human colonies marked in blue and alien fleets marked in red. The red was spreading toward the blue like blood in water. "Everyone needs to understand what we're about to do," So-young said. "In a few hours we're going to reveal ourselves to the galaxy. We're going to show them that humans are not the weak species they think we are. Some of us might not survive this mission, but our families back home will live because of what we do here." The crew members nodded. They had trained for this moment for years. Each person knew their job, and each person was ready to do whatever it took to protect humanity. Taehyun returned to the bridge and stood in front of the main screen. The crystal towers of Valdris Prime gleamed in the distance, beautiful and deadly. Inside those towers, aliens were celebrating the coming destruction of the human race. "Captain," Minho said from his station, "long-range sensors show the first. Alien battle groups will reach human colonies in 72 hours. Taehyun closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of his wife and daughter back on Earth. They were counting on him just like millions of other human families were counting on the Indomitable and her crew. "Commander Song," he said, turning to Jihye, "are our sister ships in position?" Jihye checked her communications panel. Across the galaxy, other human battleships were waiting in the darkness, each one hidden near an alien homeworld. "All ships report ready, Captain." Taehyun looked at the activation device in Jihye's hand. The red button seemed to glow in the bridge's soft light. Once that button was pressed, the galaxy would never be the same. "Not yet," he said again. "But soon. Very soon." On Valdris Prime, the aliens continued their celebration, not knowing that death floated silently above their heads, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. The Galactic Council thought they held all the power, but they were about to learn that humans had been playing a much longer, much more dangerous game. The Indomitable drifted through the asteroids like a ghost, preparing to become humanity's sword and shield in the coming storm. The celebration in the council chambers grew louder as the hours passed. Alien voices mixed together in a chorus of victory, their different languages all carrying the same message. Humanity would soon be gone forever. Supreme Leader, Vexithara, stood at the center of the room, raising a glass of purple liquid high above her head. "Today marks the beginning of a new age," she declared. "An age where the galaxy belongs to its rightful rulers, not to primitive mammals who think they can take whatever they want." The other council members cheered and raised their own drinks. They had waited so long for this moment. For years they had watched humans spread across space, claiming planets and building colonies. The aliens had tried warnings and threats, but humans kept expanding. Now, finally, they would put an end to it all. Captain Taehyun watched the celebration through the Indomitable's sensors, his face hard as stone. Around him, his crew worked quietly, preparing for what was coming. They could all feel the tension building like electricity in the air. "Captain," Communications Officer Hyun-woo Choi called from his station, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from across the galaxy. The alien fleets are beginning to move." On the main screen, dozens of red dots appeared, each one representing hundreds or thousands of warships. They were coming from every direction, converging on human space like wolves closing in on their prey. "How long do we have?" Taehyun asked. 68 hours until the first wave reaches our outer colonies," replied Navigation Officer Yunahan, her voice steady despite the terrible news she was delivering. In the ship's medical bay, Chief Medical Officer Haeun Kim was checking supplies and preparing for casualties. She had been a military doctor for 15 years, but she had never faced anything like this. Soon, the Indomitable would be fighting against impossible odds, and many of her friends might not survive. "Dr. Kim," called one of her assistants, "should we prepare the emergency surgery units?" Haeun nodded grimly. "All of them. And make sure the trauma kits are fully stocked. This is going to be the fight of our lives." Back on Valdris Prime, the aliens were no longer just celebrating, they were planning. Holographic displays showed the positions of every human colony, every human ship, every human outpost. Red arrows pointed toward each target, showing the attack routes the alien fleets would take. "The humans have no idea what's coming," laughed a creature that looked like a giant spider. "Their pathetic little defense fleet won't last 5 minutes against our combined forces." "What about Earth itself?" asked another alien, this one covered in thick armor plates. Vexithera smiled coldly. "We save Earth for last. Let them watch as we destroy every human settlement in the galaxy. Then, when they're broken and hopeless, we'll finish them off." The room erupted in cheers again, but one voice cut through the noise. It was the Zenthara delegate, the only alien who had voted against the destruction of humanity. "This is wrong," the peaceful creature said, standing up slowly. "The humans have done nothing to deserve extinction. They explore space, yes, but they don't conquer other species. They don't enslave planets. They simply want to find new homes for their growing population." The room fell silent. Vexithara turned to face the Zenthara, her 4 eyes blazing with anger. "The humans are a cancer," she hissed. "If we allow them to spread, they will consume everything. Better to cut them out now before they become too powerful." "Too powerful?" the Zenthara repeated. "They have a few hundred ships at most. Their weapons are centuries behind ours. How can they possibly threaten anyone?" The other aliens laughed at this. They all knew how weak humans were. Human ships were slow, their shields were fragile, and their weapons could barely scratch alien armor. The coming war would be a massacre, not a battle. On the Indomitable, Chief Science Officer Sumin Kang was monitoring the alien fleet movements with growing concern. The numbers were staggering. Over 50,000 warships from 7 different species, all heading toward human territory. "Captain," she called, "the alien fleets are larger than we expected. Even our best estimates were too low." Taehyun walked over to look at her displays. The red dots seemed to fill the entire galaxy, a massive tide of destruction rolling toward everything humanity had built among the stars. "Any changes to our mission profile?" he asked. Sumin shook her head. "Earth Command's orders remain the same. We proceed as planned, regardless of the odds." In the engineering section, Jae-Hwan Lee was making final adjustments to the ship's revolutionary power core. The fusion antimatter hybrid reactor was humanity's greatest technological achievement, but it was also incredibly dangerous. One mistake could vaporize the entire ship and everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. "How are we looking, Lee?" asked his assistant Do-Hyun Lim. "All systems are stable," Jae-Hwan replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The aliens think they know what human technology can do. They're about to get a very unpleasant surprise." The power core hummed softly in its containment field, holding enough energy to level a small moon. But power was only part of what made the Indomitable special. The ship's armor, weapons, and shields were all built using technologies that the rest of the galaxy had never seen. Back in the council chambers, the celebration was winding down. The aliens were tired from hours of drinking and planning, but they were happy. Soon the human problem would be solved forever. "When do we begin the attack?" asked one of the military commanders. "The fleets are already moving," Vexthera replied. "In 3 days we will strike at every human colony simultaneously. They won't have time to warn each other or prepare defenses. It will be swift and clean." What none of the aliens knew was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. While they thought humans were busy building peaceful colonies, Earth's best scientists and engineers were working in secret, developing weapons and ships that could fight a galactic war. On the Indomitable, Tactical Officer Min Seok-oh was running final checks on the ship's weapon systems. Each gun was more powerful than anything in the alien arsenals, and the ship carried hundreds of them. All weapon systems are online and ready, he reported to Captain Tae-hyun. We can engage at your command. First Officer Seo-young Kim gathered the senior staff for one last briefing. In a few hours, they would reveal themselves to the galaxy, and everything would change forever. I know what each of you is thinking, she said, looking around the room at her friends and colleagues. We're one ship against 50,000, the odds are impossible. But remember this, we're not here to win a conventional battle. We're here to send a message. Intelligence Officer Chae-young Lim nodded from her seat. Our job is to make sure the galaxy understands that humanity is not helpless. When we reveal ourselves, every alien in the galaxy will know that humans are capable of fighting back. Commander Ji-hye Song held up the activation device with its red button. Once we activate Operation Revelation, there's no going back. Are we all ready for this? Every person in the room nodded. They had trained for years preparing for this moment. They knew the risks and they accepted them willingly. Their families, their homes, their entire species was counting on them. Captain Tae-hyun stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the crystal towers of Valdris Prime. Inside those towers, aliens were planning the genocide of every human in the galaxy. They thought they held all the power, that humans were weak and helpless. They're about to learn how wrong they are, Tae-hyun said quietly. In 66 hours, the alien fleets would reach human colonies and begin their attack. But in just a few more hours, the Indomitable would reveal itself, and the galaxy would discover that humanity had secrets of its own. The storm was gathering, and soon it would break over Valdris Prime like thunder. The crystal towers of Valdris Prime shook as orbital defense platforms came online, their massive weapons turning toward the human battleship hanging above them like a dark moon. Emergency sirens wailed across the planet as millions of aliens ran for shelter, their victory celebration turning into chaos and fear. Supreme Leader Vexa Thera stood on her balcony, staring up at the Indomitable with a mixture of rage and terror. The ship was impossible, 4 kilometers of sleek, deadly technology that should not exist. Humans were supposed to be primitive, their ships crude and weak. This monster above her head changed everything. All defense platforms fire at will, she commanded into her communicator. I want that thing destroyed now. Across the planet's orbital space, dozens of massive defense stations opened fire. Energy beams that could melt asteroids struck the human ship from every direction, lighting up the sky with brilliant flashes of destruction. Nuclear missiles launched by the hundreds, creating a swarm of deadly projectiles all aimed at the Indomitable. On the human battleship's bridge, Tactical Officer Min-ho Park watched the alien attacks with calm professionalism. Captain, we're taking fire from 47 defense platforms, multiple missile launches detected. Captain Tae-hyun Kim stood in the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, monitoring systems and preparing for what was to come. Shield status? He asked. Shields at full power, replied Engineering Officer Jae-hwan Lee from his station. The alien weapons can't even scratch our hull plating. It's like throwing stones at a mountain. The alien attacks continued for several minutes, filling space around the Indomitable with explosions and energy bursts. But when the smoke cleared, the human ship hung exactly where it had been, completely undamaged. The aliens' most powerful weapons had accomplished nothing. This is impossible, breathed one of the alien commanders on the planet below. Our weapons should have destroyed them 10 times over. Vexathara's 4 hands clenched into fists. She turned to her military advisor, a hulking creature covered in battle scars. How is this possible? You told me human technology was centuries behind ours. It should be, the military commander replied, his voice shaking. Our intelligence reports showed that human ships are slow, poorly armed, and lightly armored. This This changes everything. Above them, Captain Taehyun continued his broadcast to the galaxy. His voice was calm and measured, but every word carried the weight of absolute certainty. "You wonder how we built this ship," he said. "You wonder how we knew about your plans. The answer is simple. We've been preparing for this conversation for 50 years. On the Indomitable's bridge, Communications Officer Hyunwoo Choi monitored the thousands of transmissions flooding subspace. Every alien government in the galaxy was trying to understand what they were seeing. Emergency meetings were being called, fleets were changing course, and panic was spreading like wildfire. "Captain," Hyunwoo reported, "I'm detecting massive communication traffic throughout alien space. They're all trying to figure out what we are and what we want." Navigation Officer Yuna Han studied her sensor displays as more alien fighters approached the ship. These pilots were braver than the first wave, or perhaps more desperate. They flew directly at the Indomitable's hull, trying to ram the massive vessel with their small craft. "Another suicide wave incoming," she announced. 43 fighters on collision course. The alien ship struck the human battleship's defensive barriers and simply vanished, their matter converted to pure energy and absorbed by the ship's power systems. The pilot's sacrifice accomplished nothing except to make the Indomitable slightly brighter as it fed on their attacks. "You see courage in these pilots," Captain Taehyun said, his broadcast continuing as the alien fighters died uselessly against his ship. "But courage without wisdom is just another form of suicide. Your people are throwing their lives away for nothing." Chief Medical Officer Han Kim watched from the medical bay as the ship's defensive systems effortlessly destroyed wave after wave of alien attackers. She had been a military doctor for 15 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The aliens were fighting with everything they had, and it wasn't even close to enough. "How many alien fighters have we destroyed?" she asked her assistant. "Over 400 so far," came the reply, "and they keep coming." In the ship's intelligence center, Officer Chae-Young Lim was analyzing alien communication traffic. The messages she intercepted painted a picture of growing panic throughout the galaxy. Alien leaders who had been confident just hours ago were now desperately trying to understand what they were facing. "Captain," she called over the ship's internal communication system, "alien military commanders are reporting to their governments that our technology appears to be several centuries more advanced than theirs. Some are recommending immediate withdrawal from the invasion plan, but not all of the aliens were ready to back down." On Valdris Prime, Vexithera was gathering her council for an emergency session. If the humans had one advanced ship, they would overwhelm it with numbers, 50,000 alien vessels against one human battleship. The odds were still in their favor. "Signal all invasion fleets," she commanded. "Change course for Valdris Prime immediately. We'll destroy this human ship here and now, and then proceed with the original plan." Captain Taehyun had been monitoring alien communications, and he knew what was coming. The alien fleets were turning toward Valdris Prime, intending to surround and destroy the Indomitable through sheer weight of numbers. "First Officer Song," he said, turning to Commander Seo-Young Kim, "it's time for Phase 2. Seo-Young nodded and activated her communication panel. "All ships, this is Indomitable. Execute Phase 2 on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." Across the galaxy, space itself began to bend and twist. Near the Thek's homeworld, reality rippled like water, and suddenly Commander Sung-Hoon Park's battleship Defiant materialized out of nothing. The massive vessel appeared directly above the alien capital city, its weapons powered and ready. The same thing happened at 16 other locations throughout alien space. Human battleships decloaked near every major alien homeworld simultaneously, each one identical to the Indomitable, 4 kilometers of advanced human engineering, armed with weapons that could crack planets. On Valdris Prime, Vexthara received the reports with growing horror. Human ships were appearing everywhere, positioned perfectly to threaten every major alien population center. How had they done it? How had they moved so many massive vessels without being detected? "The humans have 17 battleships," her military advisor reported, his voice barely above a whisper. "Each one appears to match or exceed the capabilities of the ship above us. They're positioned to attack every major system in the galaxy." Captain Taehyun's voice continued to echo across subspace, reaching every corner of known space. You thought we were isolated on a single world, building crude ships and begging for your acceptance. You were wrong. While you planned our extinction, we prepared for this moment. Tactical Officer Min Seok O reported from his station as more alien fighters died against their shields. Captain, alien attack patterns are becoming more desperate. They're throwing everything they have at us, but our defenses are holding at full strength. Let them waste their strength, Taehyun replied. Every ship they send against us is one less ship they can use against our colonies. The alien attacks continued, but they were having no effect. The Indomitable hung in space like an immovable object, absorbing everything the aliens could throw at it. Hundreds of fighters had been destroyed. Dozens of defense platforms had exhausted their ammunition, and the human ship remained completely undamaged. You have a choice to make, Captain Taehyun announced to the galaxy. Withdraw your fleets and recognize our right to exist in peace, or learn why we spent 50 years preparing for this conversation. On the planet below, Supreme Leader Vexathara realized that everything had changed. The humans weren't helpless victims waiting for slaughter. They were predators who had been patiently setting a trap, and the entire Galactic Council had walked right into it. What do you want? She screamed at the sky, her voice breaking with fear and rage. Captain Taehyun's answer was simple. We want what we've always wanted. The right to explore the stars, to build homes for our families, to live in peace among the galaxy's many species. The question is, are you going to try to stop us? The silence that followed was deafening. Every alien in the galaxy was waiting for their leader's response, knowing that the wrong answer could mean the destruction of everything they had built over thousands of years. The human fleet hung in space like 17 swords held at the throats of alien civilization, waiting patiently for an answer. The silence that followed the moon's destruction stretched across the galaxy like a held breath. 8,000 alien warships hung motionless in space near Valdris Prime, their crews staring at the expanding cloud of glowing gas that had once been solid rock. The human battleship Indomitable floated calmly in the center of their formation, its main cannon already powering down as if destroying moons was routine. Admiral Kyung-Soo Lee's weathered face appeared on communication screens. Throughout alien space, his expression was calm but firm as he addressed the galaxy's leaders one final time. The demonstration is complete, he said. You've seen what human technology can accomplish. More importantly, you've seen our restraint. We could have targeted your homeworlds instead of an empty moon. We could have destroyed your fleets instead of simply revealing ourselves. We chose not to because we still hope for peace. On Valdris Prime, Supreme Leader Vexathara stared up at the human ship, blocking out her sun. Her 4 hands trembled as she finally understood the terrible truth. Humanity had never been weak. They had been patient, preparing for this moment while the galaxy planned their destruction. Signal the invasion fleets, she whispered to her military advisor. All ships are to withdraw immediately and return to their home systems. The order went out across subspace, reaching alien commanders who were already beginning to turn their ships around. The invasion of human space was over before it had truly begun, ended by the simple demonstration of what would happen if it continued. Captain Taehyun Kim watched from the Indomitable's bridge as the alien fleets began their retreat. Thousands of ships that had been ready to destroy human colonies just hours ago were now fleeing toward their home systems, their crews hoping never to face human weapons again. Captain, reported Communications Officer Hyunwoo Choi, we're receiving surrender signals from 17 different alien governments. They're all requesting immediate ceasefire and offering to negotiate. Good, Taehyun replied. Open a channel to Earth Command. Tell them that Operation Revelation has succeeded. The message traveled through quantum communications networks to Earth, where human leaders had been waiting anxiously for news. President Sarah Chen smiled as she read the report. Humanity had just secured its place among the stars without firing, a shot at a living target. 3 months later, Ambassador Min Jae-kwon walked through the crystal corridors of the Galactic Council chambers on Valdris Prime, but this time he wasn't walking as a prisoner or a supplicant begging for mercy. He carried with him the credentials of Earth's official representative to the Galactic Council, the newest member of the galaxy's ruling body. The council chambers had been rebuilt since the day the Indomitable revealed itself. The old circular table had been replaced with a new design that included a seat for humanity. The message was clear. The galaxy's balance of power had changed forever. The council recognizes Ambassador Quan of Earth, announced the new supreme leader, a peaceful Zenthara who had replaced Vexithara after her resignation and disgrace. Please take your seat. Minjay sat down at the human seat, looking around at the alien faces that surrounded him. Some showed respect, others fear, and a few displayed barely hidden hatred. But none of them questioned his right to be there. They had all seen what happened to those who underestimated humanity. Outside the council chambers, the Indomitable remained in orbit around Valdris Prime. Captain Taehyun had been offered the chance to return to Earth, but he had chosen to stay. The human battleship served as a constant reminder of the new reality. Humanity was no longer asking for permission to exist among the stars. In the weeks following the revelation, human exploration ships had resumed their missions with a new confidence. Alien patrols that once harassed human vessels now kept their distance, unwilling to risk provoking the species that could destroy moons with a single shot. Chief Diplomat Ji Woo-song had been busy establishing human embassies throughout the galaxy. Each embassy was protected by a small human fleet, ensuring that diplomatic incidents would be resolved through negotiation rather than force. The galaxy is learning to see us as equals, she reported to Earth Command during her weekly briefing. Trade agreements are being signed, scientific exchanges are being established, and several species have requested human assistance with their own exploration programs. But not every species was happy with the new arrangement. The Thex Empire and Korthani Federation continued to protest human expansion, claiming that the galaxy belonged to older, more established races. Their complaints fell on deaf ears. After seeing human military capabilities, no one was willing to support another attempt at containing humanity. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Taehyun reviewed reports from across human space. The colonies that had been targeted for destruction were now thriving, their populations growing as new settlers arrived from Earth. Children who might have died in alien attacks were playing in parks and going to schools on distant worlds. "Captain," called Navigation Officer Yuna Han, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Defiant. Commander Park reports that 3 new human colonies have been established in the Outer Rim, and local alien governments have officially recognized their territorial claims." Taehyun smiled. The galaxy was finally accepting that humans had a right to spread among the stars, to build homes on distant worlds, and to raise their children under alien suns. But the human fleet remained vigilant. 17 battleships continued to patrol key positions throughout the galaxy, their crews ready to respond to any threat against human interests. The weapons that had destroyed a moon in the Valdris system were still charged and ready, serving as a deterrent against future aggression. Engineering Officer Jaewon Lee ran his daily checks on the ship's fusion antimatter reactor, the revolutionary power source that made human military superiority possible. Earth scientists had spent decades developing technologies that the rest of the galaxy couldn't match, and their efforts had paid off when it mattered most. "All systems operating at peak efficiency, Captain," he reported. "We can maintain current patrol status indefinitely." In the ship's medical bay, Chief Medical Officer Haeun Kim treated the few crew members who had been injured during the revelation. The wounds were minor, a few bruises from rapid maneuvering, some stress-related symptoms from the tension of the mission. It was a remarkably small cost for such a complete victory. "How are our people holding up?" Taehyun asked during his daily visit to the medical bay. "Better than expected," Haeun replied. "Morale is high throughout the ship. The crew knows they've accomplished something historic." And they had. The revelation had changed everything, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. The old system of established species dominating younger races was over. Power now belonged to those who could back up their words with action, and humanity had proven they could act when necessary. Intelligence Officer Chae-Young Lim continued monitoring alien communications, watching for signs of renewed aggression against human interests. Her reports showed that most alien governments were focused on rebuilding their relationships with Earth, hoping to benefit from human technology and knowledge. The aliens are learning to see us as partners rather than threats, she told Captain Tae-hyun during their weekly briefing. Several species have requested access to human medical technology, and the Zenthara have proposed a joint scientific expedition to explore the galactic core. Captain Tae-hyun nodded approvingly. This was what humanity had always wanted, not domination over other species, but acceptance as equals in the galactic community. The show of force had been necessary to achieve that goal, but now that the message was clear, humans could return to their preferred methods of diplomacy and cooperation. As the months passed, the galaxy settled into its new normal. Human ships traveled freely through space that had once been forbidden to them. Human colonies grew and prospered on worlds that had been declared off-limits by the Old Council. Human scientists worked alongside alien researchers, sharing knowledge and advancing understanding for all species. The Indomitable and her sister ships remained on patrol, but their presence was no longer threatening. They had become guardians of the peace, ensuring that the galaxy's new balance of power remained stable. In his final log entry of the day, Captain Tae-hyun reflected on what they had accomplished. Today marks 1 year since Operation Revelation began, he recorded. The galaxy has accepted humanity as an equal partner in its future. Our children will grow up among the stars, free to explore and discover without fear of alien persecution. He paused, looking out at the crystal towers of Valdris Prime glittering in the distance. We didn't start this conflict, but we certainly finished it. The galaxy learned an important lesson. Never mistake human patience for weakness. When forced to fight for our survival, we fight to win. The Indomitable continued its patrol, a dark guardian watching over the new order that humanity had created through strength, wisdom, and the courage to stand up when threatened. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and finally, humanity was free to explore them all. Space itself began to ripple and bend near the Thex homeworld of Corthax Prime. The alien planet's defense sensors screamed warnings as reality twisted in ways that should have been impossible. Then, like a giant emerging from deep water, the human battleship Defiant materialized directly above the planet's capital city. Commander Sung-hoon Park stood on his bridge, looking down at the alien world through his ship's cameras. Below him, millions of Thex citizens ran through the streets in panic. Their scaled faces looked up at the massive human vessel hanging over their heads like a dark moon. "All systems operational, Captain," reported his tactical officer. "We are in perfect position above their government center," Sung-hoon nodded grimly. The Defiant was identical to Captain Tae-hyun's Indomitable, 4 kilometers of advanced human technology, armed with weapons that could turn the planet below into a cloud of radioactive dust. But destruction wasn't the goal. The goal was to make a point. "Open communication channels to the Thex government," he ordered. "Let them know we're here." Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out at 16 other alien homeworlds. Human battleships appeared out of nothing, taking position above the most important planets in alien space. Each ship had traveled in complete stealth, using technology the aliens couldn't detect or understand. On Valdris Prime, Supreme Leader Vexithara received report after report of human ships appearing throughout the galaxy. Her 4 hands shook as she read the messages flooding her communication systems. Human battleship above Corthax Prime. Human vessel over Zenthara. Multiple ships detected near Vrak space. The reports kept coming, each one more terrifying than the last. Her military advisor, a hulking creature covered in battle scars, stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. "This is impossible," he whispered. "How did they move so many ships without us detecting them?" Above the planet, Captain Tae-hyun continued his broadcast from the Indomitable. His voice reached every corner of the galaxy, carried by communication, networks that the aliens couldn't block or jam. "You see now that we are not the primitive species you believed us to be," he said. "While you held meetings and made plans, we were preparing for this moment. Every human colony you thought was helpless has been defended. Every alien fleet you sent has been watched and tracked. On the planet below, Alien civilians pressed against windows and gathered on rooftops, staring up at the massive human ship. The Indomitable blocked out the sun, casting the crystal towers in deep shadow. The ship's hull seemed to absorb light itself, making it appear as a hole cut in the sky. Chief Science Officer Suman Kang monitored the reactions from across the galaxy. Her instruments tracked thousands of alien ships suddenly changing course, no longer heading toward human colonies but racing back to defend their own homeworlds. "Captain," she reported, "the alien invasion fleets are breaking formation. Most are returning to their home systems." "Good," Taehyun replied. "Fear makes them think clearly." But not all of the aliens were ready to give up. The most aggressive species, led by the Thex Empire and the Korthani Federation, began massing their fleets near Valdris Prime. If they could destroy the human ship above the Council world, they might still salvage their invasion plans. Intelligence Officer Cheong Lim detected the alien fleet movements and reported to Captain Taehyun. "Sir, we have approximately 8,000 alien warships approaching our position. ETA is 6 hours. "Only 8,000? Taehyun asked with a slight smile. "They're not bringing their entire force. They still think this is a conventional battle." Communications Officer Do-hyun Lim received a transmission from Admiral Kyung-soo Lee, the overall commander of the human fleet. The admiral's weathered face appeared on the main screen, his expression serious but confident. "Captain Kim," Admiral Lee said, "you've done excellent work revealing our capabilities to the galaxy. Now it's time to show them what happens when they refuse to listen to reason." "Understood, Admiral," Taehyun replied. "The Indomitable is ready for whatever comes next." The Admiral's image switched to a galaxy-wide broadcast, his words reaching every alien government and military commander in known space. "I am Admiral Kyung-soo Lee of the Human Defense Fleet. For those of you still planning to attack human colonies, I suggest you reconsider." Near the Korthani homeworld, Captain Yoni Choi of the Battleship Retribution prepared to demonstrate exactly why the aliens should reconsider. Her ship hung in space above the planet's main military base, its weapons powered but not yet targeting anything specific. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "the Korthani are launching fighters. Looks like they want to test our defenses." "Let them come," Yeon-hee replied, "but make sure our point defense systems are set to minimal power. I want to disable their ships, not vaporize them." Hundreds of alien fighters swarmed toward the Retribution, their pilots believing they could overwhelm the single human vessel. Through sheer numbers, they fired everything they had: plasma cannons, particle beams, nuclear missiles, but their weapons simply vanished into the ship's defensive barriers. The human ship's point defense systems activated, sending out precisely targeted energy pulses. Each pulse disabled an alien fighter without destroying it, leaving the pilots alive but helpless as their ships drifted powerless through space. "This is Captain Yeon-hee Choi of the Earth vessel Retribution," she broadcast to the alien world. Below, "Your fighters are alive but disabled. We could have destroyed them all in seconds, but we chose not to. Remember this mercy when you decide how to respond to our presence." Back on Valdris Prime, Supreme Leader Vexithara watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. Every human ship was demonstrating the same incredible technology: weapons that could disable or destroy at will, shields that absorbed any attack, and defensive systems that made them practically invincible. "How many ships do the humans have?" she asked her intelligence chief. 17 confirmed battleships," came the reply. "But there could be more. Our sensors can't detect them when they're cloaked." The thought sent a chill through Vexithara's body. If humans had 17 ships like the Indomitable, what else might they have hidden throughout the galaxy? How many other secrets had they kept while the aliens plotted their destruction? Admiral Lee's broadcast continued, his voice carrying a warning that every alien leader understood. "Your invasion fleets outnumber us 3,000 to 1. In any conventional engagement, you would have the advantage. Fortunately for us, this won't be conventional." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Taehyun received a priority message from Earth Command. The content was brief but significant. "Operation Revelation Phase 3 authorized. Show them what we're really capable of." Taehyun turned to his weapons officer. "Minsok, Prepare the main cannon for a demonstration shot. Target the dead moon in the outer system. Tactical Officer. Min-Suk Oh's fingers danced across his controls, bringing the ship's most powerful weapon online. The main cannon was a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A focused beam that could punch through a planet's crust and crack its core. Main cannon charged and ready, Captain, Min-Suk reported. Target locked on the lifeless moon, designated Echo 7. The alien fleets approaching Valdris Prime suddenly detected massive energy readings from the human battleship. Every sensor in the system screamed warnings as the Indomitable prepared to fire. All ships, this is Captain Taehyun Kim, he broadcast to the approaching alien fleet. You're about to witness what happens when human restraint is removed. The target is a dead rock with no life and no strategic value. Watch carefully. The Indomitable's main cannon fired. A beam of pure energy, brighter than a star, lanced out across space and struck the distant moon. For a moment, the satellite simply absorbed the energy, its surface glowing white-hot. Then it began to crack, massive fissures spreading across its surface like a broken egg. The moon exploded, not in a simple blast, but in a complete disintegration that turned solid rock into expanding clouds of glowing gas. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away, a brilliant flash that lit up the darkness of space. The alien fleet stopped dead in space, their crews staring in shock at the destruction they had just witnessed. The human ship had destroyed a moon with a single shot. If they could do that to a lifeless rock, what could they do to a planet full of people? That was our main cannon at 15% power, Captain Taehyun announced calmly. Any questions? The silence that followed was deafening. 8,000 alien warships hung motionless in space, their crews suddenly understanding that they were no longer the predators in this situation. They were the prey. Admiral Lee's face reappeared on screens throughout the galaxy. The choice is yours, he said simply. Withdraw your fleets and recognize humanity's right to exist, or discover what our weapons can do at full power. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the aliens' response.